What's going on, my broskies? My name is Toadski, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video. So we're doing the treasure map preparation video. Instead of just, building the teams in-game and showing you guys in-game, I'm just going to show you guys on the website itself. So I'll leave a link to the treasure map planner down below in the description, and I'll likely leave it as a pinned comment. If you guys, sometimes find it a little bit hard to build the teams in-game, this tool is so amazing because it just puts all the boosters there. You can click and drag your characters around, and it's just a more efficient way of building your teams. Also, you can just click on a character, attach a certain support that you may want to have. It just makes things so much cleaner. So if you guys want to go ahead and do that, this is the tool for you. But I've already gone ahead and built some teams for you guys that, not going to be using some of the high-end characters, like the new characters that just came out. Some of the teams will have some of the anniversary characters in it, but we'll talk about it as we go along. So I'll go ahead and zoom in here, and we'll just go from left to right. So this is the first boss, which is Mr. 4 and Miss Merry Christmas. So this is the boss that gives you cooldown for all units, so you don't really have to worry about picking and choosing certain units. But as for the debuffs here, you can see you get Special Bind on your left side of your crew, and then you get Stunned on your right side. So remember, if a character is stunned, you can't interact with them. So they really want you to use this new Luffy 5+, as well as Nami and Sanji. These two units are like the key characters for this fight. There is attack down, there is increased damage taken, but it really doesn't matter that much because this Nami and Sanji special is actually really good because it removes the Special Bind, and it also removes stun completely, gives you an orb boost as well. But I guess the best way to go about it is to use Luffy's super type first, use his special. Well, actually, you can't because you're going to be inflicted with the Special Bind. So you do have to use the Nami Sanji special, but then you can use the Luffy super type, then the special, and then you're basically good to go. You can just kill. So you may want to maybe change some characters around if you want more matching slots, but Mr. 4 and Miss Merry Christmas is a pretty straightforward fight. Moving on to Perona. Perona is slightly more difficult, but again, pretty straightforward. So fighters, cerebrals, and powerhouse receive the cooldown, and then for this fight, you do see that you get block slots, 3 turns of slot bind for only the top row, so only your captains are inflicted with that. There is the super burns. Every time you tap perfect, it deals 15,000 damage, so you have to be careful about that. There is 7 turns of defense up, and there is intimidate. Any orb boost, it gets -2 turns. So the way that we're getting around this is Rob Lucci. Rob Lucci is the best character for this because his captain ability is really strong, of course, but he does have the potential ability of slot bind removal, so the captains are not really affected. And then the special removes the defense and the burn completely. And then, of course, if you use his special, his captain ability extends the duration of orb boosts, which means you can get around the intimidate debuff on the enemy side of the field. So Rob Lucci basically deals with everything. You just have to find a way to change block slots into matching, which is not a very difficult thing to do because you've got Shanks, you've got Cracker, you've got Izo, a lot of good characters that you could use in this scenario. So Rob Lucci is basically the best way to get around it for that fight. Now moving on to Sugar, we're using a pretty obscure team for this one because this is not the recommended team that they want you to use. This one, it just has a ton of different debuffs. If you're just trying to brute force this, trying to get around every debuff naturally, it's going to make it a lot harder for you because there's a health cut, there's a lot of bind to your left side, badly matching slots, there is 1 hit of hunger, so you needed to get around that, there is threshold, there is a barrier where you have to hit with the enemy with 2 recovery slots in order to break it, there is intimidate for color affinity, and then when you kill the enemy, they do 100,000 damage to your crew. So a lot of really nasty debuffs, but immediately the things that stand out, right? Bind, threshold, barrier, and then death hits. Double Gear 5 Luffy basically deals with all of those by himself. His captain ability getting around bind and special reverse. When you transform him into Gear 5 with his EX Super, you can go through defensive effects, including the barrier, including the threshold. But remember, don't transform both Luffys. You only transform one of your Luffys, so you have another Luffy that can tank the death hit and then revive. So that gets around literally most of the stuff here. The only thing also Luffy's special does change all slots into Psy, so you get around the badly matching slots. You don't have to worry about not having recovery slots. So literally just gets around everything. So Luffy does so much, and then you just need a way to get around the hunger. And in this team, we're just using Bon Clay, but legit, any character with hunger will just slot into this team, and you just need the 3 Straw Hat characters in order to proc Luffy's EX Super. Of course, there is an Intimidate for color affinity where any color affinity is given -2 turns. So Luffy's color affinity will not activate. The orb boost from the transformed Luffy will still activate, but just keep in mind about that color affinity not being activated there. But Luffy does so much work in this fight. I would recommend, even though the fact that Luffy isn't boosted, he just does so much and makes the fight so much easier, allows you to get through it faster. It's probably just the way to go, unless if you have the recommended units for this fight. I believe the recommended units are this Sanji, the new Sanji that came out with Zoro. So you want Sanji and then the Zeph. Those two characters get around the Sugar fight. Moving on from that, we have Ulti and Page 1. This is another fight where I'm using characters that are not boosted as captains because it just makes things easier. So you do see that for this fight, there is going to be reverse, which does suck, but there is Rainbow Shield, -2 turns of your attack boosts, Despair, Paralysis, a lot of it by the way, and then if you use a Color Affinity special, then they remove your buffs only once. But because of the fact that there is Despair and Paralysis, that's the reason why I opted to put Luffy here, because Luffy does have the captain ability to remove 10 turns of Paralysis and Despair. With double Luffy, we can get around all of that. The only real thing that's here as well that we need to get around is the special reverse to your crewmates, and there is also the Intimidate. So any attack boost is -2, but there is 6 turns of Rainbow Shield. So the Mihawk gets around the Rainbow Shield, and then we have Kara and Wanda, which gives the 2 turns of cooldown to the whole crew. So that's really good. And then, of course, Luffy with his special can provide a really good damage boost for himself. But, you know, you've got Carrot and Wanda, which gives an orb boost to all characters. The Koala here is basically here just because it is a point booster character. Same with Jinbei. There's just not a lot of point boosters in this TM. Like, I've built all these teams, and then you just see, like, this is the amount of boosters that are just left. So there's not actually a lot of characters that are boosted in this TM, which I found a little bit strange. I don't know if you guys have had that same issue when you tried to build your team so far. But Luffy just dealing with so many gimmicks, and then the Mihawk, Carrot Wanda, well, Carrot Wanda specifically for cooldown, but there are a couple of other ways that you could get around it as well. What they are suggesting you to use, if you have the unit, is to use Zoro as the captain, double Zoro, use Kuina, and then also use the Mihawk. That's the recommended core of characters they want you to use for this particular fight. So now we can progress now to the final boss, which is Kuro and Django. So Kuro and Django, Slasher, Free Spirit, and Powerhouse is what they want you to use. Now, in this fight, this is the team that we have. So, of course, we are using quite a lot of those anniversary characters. We're using Ace, Luffy, and Shanks. But I'll talk about why we use them, and I'll give you a bit of information in terms of, like, things you can do to potentially get around that. So Ace is good for a couple of reasons, mainly because well, the thing is on the final boss on stage 3, after the first turn, they do go ahead and give special reverse, and also they give resilience. However, due to the fact that we're going to be using Usopp as our friend captain here, what happens is that when you use Usopp's special on the final stage, which will actually get around 7 turns of this, it delays the enemy, and you can only do 70% of the enemy's max HP, so you actually have to stall 2 turns. But the thing is that if the enemy is delayed, I believe this actually doesn't activate. So it means that you're not going to get reversed, you're not going to go ahead and get the resilience. Which means that Ace's whole use case here is just to remove the 2 turns of the nullified damage, because Ace removes 3 turns of that. So ultimately, if you don't have Ace, you could just use this free-to-play Blackbeard from last month. I've got him over on this team here. This Blackbeard, this guy removes 1 turn of damage nullification, and he also reduces the rest of it by 30%. So that could potentially be a way to get around it, whether that 30% might not be enough, but ultimately, you could just go ahead and use the special, and then the Usopp special, which can delay the enemy as well through status effects, and then you could just stall the other turn of nullification. That is potentially an idea. Now, there is also a burn. We do have the Yamato mainly for that, but the Nami and the Carrot are here due to the fact that on the final stage, there is 5 turns of special bind. That really does suck. It's a lot of special bind randomly just on the crew, so they are the character that is here for that. There is the Rainbow Shield, which is why we have Shanks, so if you have another 6-turn remover, you can definitely use that instead. And then, as I said about the Threshold, we've got Luffy for that, but also Usopp removes it. There is 10 turns of that. Luffy does remove 10 turns, Usopp removes 7, so you could just use Usopp as a friend captain and then have another unit that removes 3 turns of that. Ultimately, another thing you could do is that if you do have Ace, you could actually use the support of Cornelia and Kotatsu once per adventure. When you reach the last stage, removes 3 turns of bind and 3 turns of damage threshold, which means that with Usopp special and the Cornelia and Kotatsu support, it actually will remove all turns of the damage threshold without even having to need Luffy. So that's something that you could potentially look out for as well. As I said, on the final stage, if you delay the enemy, I believe this effect will not activate, so you don't have to worry about the reverse, and I believe you don't have to worry about the resilience. If that is incorrect, then it means you need to bring some type of effect that can deal with the resilience, but I'm pretty sure that due to the delay, it means this does not activate, which does make things slightly easier. So that's the breakdown of the team that I have here versus Kuro and Django. And then finally we have Mihawk. It says there is something wrong with this team. What is it? Okay, it's just stuff. That's fine. Okay, so the Mihawk fight. This is the Intrusion battle boss. So for this one, you do see that I'm using Koala as the captain, mainly because of this support. We'll talk about it in just a sec. So Strength, Dex, and Psi receive the cooldown. So on stage 2, there is going to be block slots. There is the special reverse, which Koala as a captain deals with special reverse. There is the burn. There is the threshold. Just really nasty stuff, right? But what will happen is we can use the Ezo special. So Ezo will go ahead and change block into matching. And then we can use the Lucci special, which gives an orb boost, and it also will remove the burn for us, which is fantastic. So with Ezo and Lucci, we just get around everything on stage 2, which is fantastic. We can just kill very simply. When you move on to the last stage, there's a lot of gimmicks, right? So once again, cooldown reduction, or special reverse, Koala deals with that. There is paralysis slots, we'll talk about that in just a second. There is normal attacks only, 5 turns of an attack buff, 1.1, 5 turns of an orb boost, 1.1, 3 turns of a barrier where you have to hit the enemy with 2 dex slots in order to break it, and then there's also 9 turns of bind to your left side of the field. And then also, if the enemy's barrier is removed, they do 100,000 damage to your crew, so be careful about that. And if you use Recovery, Tandem, Wano, Bomb, or Super Bomb, then the damage from those slots is reduced. So they want you to use those dex slots for this barrier in particular. So the whole reason why we have this support is because when we reach the last stage, this support says it removes 1 turn of bind and 1 turn of paralysis whenever we're inflicted with it. So because it will trigger here, it removes 1 turn of bind and it removes 1 turn of paralysis, changing the paralysis slots into matching for us, which is so good. And then of course with sockets, this goes down by a further 3 turns, and with Yamato special, Yamato does do some slot change, which is kind of annoying, but it does remove bind by 3 turns. With double special launches, you can remove 6 turns of it. It says it will change this own slot into Tandem, adjacent slots into Wano. So these 3 characters are not really going to be doing that much damage, but as long as you have those dex slots to break that barrier, that is the most important thing. So you can tap with Lucci, you can tap with Koala, and then you'll still have a dex slot for Usopp, which will do a pretty hefty amount of damage to the opponent. Blackbeard is here just because he's a relatively high point booster that you can use in this fight. And then, of course, you'll have like Koala's color affinity boost. You'll have Usopp, he gives orb boost with his EX Super. And I don't think the EX Super will actually trigger here, which does kind of suck actually. But you may potentially want to have some supports that can give you some increased in damage in some capacity if you want to. But this does get around all the gimmicks, which is cool. So that's the whole main thing. And then tweaking this team to your liking is probably what you should be doing. So it doesn't actually use a lot of like hard to get characters. I guess the only difficult character to get here is the Koala technically. So if you don't have the Koala, having Ace as the other captain is probably the way to go. Without Koala or Ace, it is going to make things that much more challenging due to the fact that there is the hits of special reverse, which just makes things so annoying. I really hate how much special reverse is in this content. This time around, you've got special reverse here, and here. And is there any special reverse here? No, there isn't, right? But still, like half of the bosses having special reverse on it is just super frustrating. Just means you have to build your teams in really weird and funky ways. But that's going to wrap it up for me, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I'll be uploading my own video in regards to what teams I'll be using in this upcoming treasure map sometime soon, so make sure to look out for that. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to go ahead and leave a like, and if you want to stay up to date with all the content I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. And that, guys, I will see you guys within the next video.